is thought to have, what, 20 scuds, 50 scuds?
He has a number of scuds. The precise number is yet undetermined because he's been successful in hiding some of them.
Well, I assume the assumption is that if he decides to loose them with the anthrax, with the other chemical agents you've talked about...
We discovered, as a matter of fact, that he did have anthrax in the warheads of the Scud missiles. UNSCOM, the inspectors, did discover that. So this is not something that's just
even
an
1991.
After 1991, with the UN inspectors going in, they discovered that he had warheads that did contain anthrax and was prepared, obviously, to use them if he sought it necessary to do so.
Well, I'm coming now to the present time.
Right.
If he looses scuds, it would probably be against Israel with these awful weapons.
Not necessarily, because we also found after 1991 that he was trying to acquire the capability of launching a missile that had a range of 3,000 kilometers, which can run all the way from Baghdad to Paris. I assume that he was trying to extend the range even further and possibly hit parts of the United States. So it's not simply confined, and what I'm trying to make the point is, it's not confined to Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Israel, that part of the world. This is a global threat, potentially, that he is seeking to
Trying to extend the range. Do we have any intelligence estimate which says that he may have perfected some sort of missile, however crude, that could reach the United States?
What I indicated is we found that he was trying to develop a missile and would have, if not impeded from doing so, had a missile with a 3,000 kilometer range.
Before I turn it over, George, I just want to finish this line of questioning. Have we said to Israel, please do not respond, or isn't it likely that if Israel is hit, Israel is going to respond with a massive retaliation? Some people have even suggested perhaps using nuclear weapons.
I don't think we should make any kind of assumption whatsoever. We're going to pursue the diplomatic people, and so that you cannot accomplish everything by air. That's the reason why we're trying to get the inspectors on the ground.
With the matter of collateral damage and being discreet, will human shields work? That is, if he puts human beings around targets, will we say they're off limits?
Well, I tried to indicate before, I thought it was really inhumane of him to allow any of his women and children and civilians to occupy positions that might expose them to these harmful toxins. I wouldn't rule out any discussion of any target. I think one of the maxims is that you never disclose what you're willing to do in the face of an adversary, and you won't disclose what you're unwilling to do.
Well, let me just ask this. Now you have Tariq Aziz saying in an interview with Time magazine that there might be sympathetic to Baghdad terrorists operating in the United States and committing acts of terrorism, and the official newspaper in Iraq calling on Iraqis and others, sympathizers, to attack U.S. and British facilities. If that happens, what's the response?
Well, first of all, the best way to ensure that terrorism will continue will be to have a policy of appeasement. I think that the message will be to Baghdad, as it has been in the past, any support of terrorist actions against U.S. citizens will be met with a rather overwhelming response. So there have been words like this in the past. To the extent they're carried out, there'll be a penalty. You'll have to.
This week, the Iraqi leader has also made it clear that the United States policy in Iraq doesn't have many all-out supporters around. The coalition that the U.S. put together 6.5 years ago to liberate Kuwait could not easily be put back together again. Two of America's European allies, France and Russia, are particularly opposed to any military operation which might coerce the Iraqis or punish them. We spoke today with France's principal representative to the United States, Ambassador Boujon de Letton. I know for a fact that you have heard Americans say that France's interests in having a relationship with Iraq are notably economic, and that is what makes France on occasion reluctant to see things the American way. Fair criticism?
I don't think it is a fair accusation. Many other countries have economic interest in Iraq, and if you think about oil, because it is usually oil which is mentioned in this kind of criticism, I think every oil company in the world is interested in Iraq because Iraq has the second oil reserves in the world.
Do you believe absolutely that in order to restrain Saddam Hussein, in order to make him play by the rules of the international community, you must use a carrot as well as a stick with him?
We certainly must persuade him that if he complies with the United Nations Security Council resolution, there is, as one says, a light at the end of the tunnel. Don't forget that the United Nations Security Council resolutions provide for a lifting of the sanctions once the United Nations are satisfied that there is full compliance with their resolutions. So when we talk about implementing the Security Council resolutions, we must include that also.
the French point of view. Nowhere has support for the United States eroded more dramatically than in the Arab world itself. In 1991, countries throughout the region joined Operation Desert Storm. Some actually sent soldiers to fight. They will not volunteering this time.
Syria has, for the first time in 15 years, opened its borders to trade with its longtime enemy, Iraq. Saudi Arabia, once terrified it too could fall to Iraq's military, is now more fearful of homegrown American extremists like those who blew up this U.S. military apartment building in Dhahran. They are much more reluctant now to be seen as the base for a U.S. strike on Iraq.
אנחנו עם סיכום האירועים עד כה, 90 דקות אחרי שפג תוקף האולטימטום לסדאם חוסיין, נפתחה המערכה בעיראק. קצת אחרי 4:30 שעוננו, 5:30 שעון בגדד, מעט לפני שהשחר עלה, נשמעו קולות פיצוץ בשמי בגדד ונראו הבזקים של אש נגד מטוסים. מיד אחר כך עלה נשיא ארצות הברית ג'ורג' בוש לשידור, והודיע שהמתקפה נגד המשטר העיראקי החלה.
At this hour, American and coalition forces are in the early stages of military operations to disarm Iraq, to free its people, and to defend the world from grave danger. On my orders, coalition forces have begun striking selected targets of military importance to undermine Saddam Hussein's ability to wage war. These are opening stages of what will be a broad and concerted campaign. More than 35 countries are giving crucial support, from the use of naval and air bases to help with intelligence and logistics to the deployment of combat units. In this conflict, America faces an enemy who has no regard for conventions of war or rules of morality. Saddam Hussein has placed Iraqi troops and equipment in civilian areas, attempting to use innocent men, women, and children as shields for his own military, a final atrocity against his people.
ברגע שהגיע מודיעין על הבכירים העיראקים, אולי הנשיא עצמו ואחד מבניו, אז הוחלט להתחיל במתקפה. מדווח גם שמערכות ההגנה האווירית, המערכות העיראקיות בעצם שותקו במתקפה הזאת.
We don't know yet, but President Saddam Hussein, we're told, will soon go on Iraqi national television.
גם סקאי מדווחת שסדאם חוסיין יופיע בקרוב בטלוויזיה העיראקית ויפנה לעם העיראקי. אלה תמונות מבגדד עם שחר ראשון. כן, הרבה, בעיקר עשן בבגדד, אלה תמונות מלפני כמה שעות. אלה באמת התמונות הראשונות של הפגיעות האלה בבגדד.
אז אנחנו נעבור עכשיו לאולפן שלנו בתל אביב, אליך כתבנו לענייני צבא רוני דניאל, עם עדכון של בוקר כשעתיים, עוד מעט 3 שעות מפתיחת המתקפה האמריקנית.
כן, אז ברשותכם כמה הערות. קודם כל, הערכה יסודית בישראל שסיכוי ירי עיראקי לעברנו נמוך מאוד 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 מאוד, ובכן הערכה הזאת גם הבוקר ממשיכה להיות כזו. כן, יש פעילות אמריקנית במערב עיראק. האמריקנים מתכננים שם שורה של הפצצות על כבישים באופן כזה למנוע אפשרות של כל תנועה במרחב הזה, אבל כן, יש עכשיו במערב עיראק פעילות של יחידות כאלה ואחרות. ערפל הקרב הוא מלא, אבל הפעילות שם מתקיימת. כאן אצלנו תמונת המצב, כנראה שהייתה התראה, גדי, למרות שאני לא יודע לומר את זה בוודאות, אבל אתמול בלילה הקפיצו מאוד את רמת הכוננות של כל סוללות הנ"מ שלנו, החץ ופטריוט, משמע אולי האמריקנים הועילו לומר איזה משפט שכיוון לשעות האלה. עדיין נשארים באותה מתכונת כמובן האזרחים, לאמור מסכות וצמודים וככה, ובדרך כאן לאולפן הכבישים סוענים. נדמה לי שאנשים לוקחים את זה בהחלט.
מאפגניסטן, לא מעיראק, אנחנו שמענו כרגע את הדיווח על כך שיש איזשהו מבצע אמריקני במלחמה הנמשכת, צריך להזכיר, באפגניסטן כבר מזה 1.5 שנה, איזשהו מבצע אמריקני ליחידת אולי אנשי אל-קאידה בעיראק. אלה תמונות של הצבא. באפגניסטן כמובן יש כבר 2 חזיתות, צריך להתרגל. אלה תמונות של הצבא האמריקני שם באפגניסטן, איזשהו מבצע שאנחנו עדיין לא